And Sir has taught him a lot of secrets also. He has written a lot of things in hand, and which I don't think a lot of students will get in a notebook, and he has given him things which he has shown me. And he has imbibed, and he had a lot of interactions with Sir. So I requested him to come and share some of his interactions with Sir, and share some thoughts. Thank you, Navtej. Thank you for, he's come from Delhi. Thank you.
Namaskar. It's of course an honor to be standing here at the Mandiram. I'm sorry. Remembering the man who I can say has shaped me. I mean, I don't say these things very easily, but the more I look up around and more I I see Desikachar sir had a tremendous influence on me. And in very, very gentle ways, in very unspoken ways. Just the way he was, just the way in what he believed, just the way in what he said, and just the way in what he did not say. So there were lots of things that he would not even engage in or say, and that was already saying a lot. I came to Chennai in 1980, and as SSR was saying, literally I joined Kalakshetra on a Monday. I was living in a guest house in Egmore. I was taking 23A to Kalakshetra. Wednesday I'm at the Mandiram. So within 2 days, within my first week, I was both a student at Kalakshetra and at the Mandiram. And it stayed like that. I would dance in the morning and come here in the evenings. And then, of course, for the 8 a.m. class with Sir, the lecture with Sir, which was the highlight of my time here. So it's kind of difficult to talk about a man who has guided me in so many ways. And I'd like to talk of a few things. I can't talk of too many, but a few things which made him a fascinating personality. He was a fascinating man. He was a fascinating man because he was so ordinary and he was so special at the same time. He didn't play the guru, as you all know, at all. He did not play the guru card at all. When he could have played the guru card, everybody else was playing the guru card, but he did not. And it's not that he didn't play it, he chose not to play it. And there was a very clear understanding and a stand behind that, which he never spoke about. But on the other hand, it becomes even more visible to me now. So I'm going to remember him by talking of a few things which have intrigued me, inspired me, fascinated me about the man. And the first thing that I want to talk about is his decision, I mean, to me, this is a very, very important decision. When he decides to study yoga with Periyar, but he lays a condition of yoga without God. Yeah, it's a very personal decision, and it's a very important decision. And I think we also have to kind of look at it in a very, very sensitive manner, because it's not just a personal decision, there's something more to it. So when he decides to lay this condition as a young man who's an engineer, who's embarking upon, I mean, he could have embarked upon on his professional line and become an engineer, but he decides to, at that point, when he's ready, he's all poised literally to go on a different line, and then he stops, he reviews his life, and then he decides that no, he's going to actually redirect his life altogether. And this is, I mean, if people have been, if young men of 19, 20, 21, 22, the anxiety to be, to have a profession and to make a living is quite strong at that point. And at that point, when you're ready to do something, to switch to a new line altogether is not a very simple thing. It's a hugely considered choice. And then he's making the choice, and then he's making a choice on his own terms. But to say that if he lays that condition down, it is not that he rejects God, but he leaves it unnamed. And I think this is a very, very important thing for us to realize, that it's not that he is, because there was nothing in him, in his demeanor, that rejected. But on the other hand, there was nothing in his demeanor that wore the signs of it, or the visible signs of it, or endorsed the visible signs of it. And what came through, to me, if I have to define Sir in one word, he was an embodiment of respect. Sir was one of the most respectful people across the board that I've ever met. I mean, he was ever respectful. Like people are ever ready, Sir was ever respectful. His demeanor, his body language was ever respectful, and if I may add the next term, ever curious. Sir never came from a place of, I know it. I don't remember that ever. He had this sense of, it was like this, that I maybe don't know enough. I know, but I don't know just this much. So there was a bit of a excess curiosity in him all the time, and that curiosity was of respect, of wanting to know what maybe he didn't know about the other. Like even when he would meet a student, the way he would just kind of, do a diagnosis or something, or the way he would kind of talk to the person, it was respecting the person from where he or she was coming from, respecting, like, it wasn't lip service. You could see that his body language was that of respect, and he was really curious to know as to what that person was, where that person was coming from. And there was no, he wasn't trying to impose his ideas, or he wasn't projecting, so to speak. And to me, that is a huge quality as a teacher, as a human being, as a healer. So when we say, and this same respect then reflects in also the way he respected his teacher. I mean, that is admirable, the steadfast respect for his teacher, who he respects, and yet he also knows that he will not be like him. You see, that makes the person doubly respectful. That I respect the man, knowing very well that I cannot or I will not be like him. And yet, do you realize the distinction between, I mean, it's very easy to respect somebody that I want to be like him, I want to emulate you, I'll be like you, I respect you. Okay, I'm following that respectful line. But to know that I respect him, and we don't know whether he didn't want to be like that, or he felt unable to be like that, or he also maybe believed in the impossibility of actually being somebody else. I think this is also there, that Because he used to say that, this whole thing about tradition, that, how can I follow tradition, which is like thousands of years old, when I can't even be like my father, which is just one generation removed? If I can't just follow and emulate the generation before me, how can I make tall claims about these thousands of years of tradition? So, but at the same time, utmost respect. So, going back to the question of God or no God, by not following, not like when I look back, or actually not even look back, what I would see in him was that Sir was not buying into a lot of many things that are conventional or are popular. So one thing, so he didn't play the card, like he didn't play the guru card, whereas he could have easily bought into being the guru. I mean, he was getting it on a platter. Similarly, by not playing the God card or making the God issue extremely private, he actually, I think what he actually did was that he actually opens up that God space all the more. By not naming it, he actually opens up the God space as opposed to name it and close it. So I think this is something, this is to me, this is Sir's trump card. If I have to say that, this was his trump card, that he actually, so when he says that, Pereira would say that, he wrote that, if mind, body and breath are not working in tandem, it is not yoga. And Sir added, if mind, body, breath and something more are not working in tandem, it is not yoga. So that there's something more that he includes into this trajectory of the model of breath, body, mind, and something more. And that something more is so inspiring. Because it is, I can do anything with it then. It gives me freedom, it gives me autonomy, it gives me a space to remain inspired, and more than that, it gives me the space to forever inquire. That's another thing I would say, that I've been to many lectures of yoga gurus all across the world. I mean, they're all from here, and I don't remember anyone using the word inquiry the way Sir used it. Sir actually spoke about inquiry as opposed to belief. It's very easy to say, believe in this and you shall get this, as opposed to, I don't know, pa. I mean, this is a big thing to say, I don't know, pa. And yet, the question is alive, the inquiry is alive, the vichar is alive. So so when I say that by saying that I want to study yoga as a practice or whatever, and not make it into a God practice, he actually opens up A, the God space, and 2, yoga as a process. A process of what to my mind is a process of actually, and this is what, if some of you were here in the morning, in the afternoon, my Bap's thing, it is a process of distillation. How can I distill this material body into something else? How do I distill? It's a process from sthula to sukshma. This, and to me, by opening, by not making it a convention, by not making into a ideological or a religious or a practice of sublimation or being a supplicant, he actually makes it into something else. And I think here his engagement with engineering also comes in a lot, because he is looking at the body as an engineer does, of how do you bring efficiency into the body, and how do you make this movement refined. And refinement is part and parcel of this process of distillation or percolation. So yoga is not only, to make a long story short, to me, by opening the space, he makes it process oriented as opposed to product oriented. And I mentioned this earlier in the class, that the second thing he doesn't buy into it is making yoga a product, or making, as I said, the popular idea that has been prevalent over the last 50 years is of producing asana. Literally, I mean, we produce asana, that we make the body into a production of asanas. Like I produce 10 asanas, I produce 20 asanas, I produce more difficult asanas, I produce a more difficult series. There's a kind of a production, as though it is a do. And this is a modern post-industrial thing where we say work is worship, aram haram hai. Literally, these are slogans that we have in the last 200 years, which we have imbibed, as though doing is the only thing. That doing is good, non-doing is, like this thing of don't just sit there, do something. But yoga is also about don't just do, sit. Yoga is actually eventually about don't just keep on doing, don't just keep on moving. Sit. It's the opposite. And it's literally going against the grain, the cultural grain of the times, where you don't buy into this idea of doing and producing, and So every time I would come to the mandiram after a few years, I would find that the practice has actually become simpler. Like I would think that practice would become even more sophisticated and better and bigger, and everybody would be standing on their heads and doing this and that. It would become like even simpler. Like literally, this is the evolution of the KYM, that practice has become more silent, more distilled, more sensitive, as opposed to even more difficult or even more acrobatic. So this is because of Sir, because he did not buy into that production. He also did not buy into what can be called perfectionism, that you have to have a perfect posture or any kind of perfectionism. His thing was whatever is perfect enough. The moment is perfect. And this is a huge thing to believe in and to impart. And impart not by words, but by practice, or just by being. So, in fact, if, I don't know, people know this, like today within, perfectionism is a mental disorder. Perfectionism today, Lata sitting there, perfectionism is a mental disorder that people who are perfectionists, like the super moms, are driving themselves crazy. Supermen are driving themselves crazy because they want to be perfect in so many things. So there's they have to produce so many things. So perfectionism, and in the last 50 years, perfectionism was the first thing, perfect hona chahiye. Everything should be perfect. But if you look at the KYM practice, it doesn't even entertain the idea of perfectionism. It engages what is at hand and how best to calibrate it. I think calibration is the strength of this practice. How do I calibrate the elements? How do I calibrate my flesh and bones and breath and gaze and mind, and just make it into a semblance of being for some time? So he didn't buy into that. He also did not buy into standardization. And this is a time when standardization again, we know that the corporate world thrives on standardization. You make everybody work the same way. Of course, it's far more lucrative. We all know this. I keep telling my students who come to work with me in Delhi, I tell them all that we will work, we'll make a good living, but we will not become very rich. As opposed to other yoga masters who will become maybe very rich, because in one class they can teach 100 students, because everybody does the same thing. It's like standardized routine. 12 asanas in a row, you do it and you have done your yoga. Over here, we don't even know the first word about standardized. You put two bodies in front of me and I'm disoriented. Where do I go? Because they're both telling me different stories. And I have to look at both and honor both. So, Sir did not entertain that at all. It didn't even become an issue for him. His belief in honoring the body, the person as a whole and as an autonomous whole was so great that he didn't even buy into it. So and these are not small things, that he didn't buy into all the things that were rampant at that time. Religion, ideology, perfectionism, standardization. There's one more thing which I thought I'd written down. And the last is the preciousness of tradition, that it's something very precious. It will be very, very, you can't be good enough to hold this tradition. And I tell you, as a Bharatanatyam dancer, this is what we have been told all the time, that we are never good enough. I can tell you that it took me 10 years of training to feel that I was good enough to dance. It took me a week of practice in this place where I felt I was good enough to do practice. This I wrote in my diary when I first came here, that it took me years to feel, and you know how important that is, to feel good enough to own your own practice, to feel that self-worth, that I'm worthy of my practice, I can fit it, I belong here, it fits my body, it is mine, as opposed to, I will never be good enough. That anxiety, that I'll never be, because the shape is so perfect and the tradition is so lofty and it's so precious and I don't know anything about it, and it's made. And I'm telling you, that tradition has, in the last 50 years of post-independence India, become the trump card of India. This is culture, and now we are seeing it in very blatant ways, that you stick to a tradition, you stick to a thing, or you don't belong. So, with Sir, he did not make it precious. He didn't make the practice precious, and of course and by not making it, he made it all the more precious, because you fall in love with it. And then that's the most precious thing, because you fall in love with you know that something that's giving you such incredible, it plugs you into something else immediately, and you're sold to it, so to speak. So these are few things that he, without making any tall claims, without taking any stand, without making, just ordinarily, casually, he has transmitted to all of us, and left us, left us feeling free. This is freedom, that I belong in my practice. That is a huge freedom. I can, because I know that I respect, and respect is an important ingredient, because I know I respect the tradition, the practice, I can play with it. I don't have to stick to what was told. Because as a Periyar would say that, I make rules and I break rules. To inherit that kind of a lineage, that I can make rules, but I can also break rules. What incredible freedom. What incredible sense of autonomy and agency, and just feeling that it's okay. I don't have to be carrying a weight of something that is made and cannot be even questioned. That's a very oppressive, to be doing a practice with that kind of an idea, it can be quite terrifying. A few other things that I remember about, know about Sir, is his sense of, I've already said that curiosity, and to me he was again an embodiment of care. He, not just caring for, he would care for your practice, like Sir was saying, like he actually, I would come here for a few days, from Delhi, and I would only come to visit one dance teacher and Sir. So I would spend, and he would call me home and actually write in my notebook, write my practice so I have my practices handwritten by Sir in my notebook, because he wanted to, because there was love, there was care, and there was attention, and there was a generosity to give. And this thing about giving, this thing about giving, because he used to say, start giving the minute you can, start teaching the minute you can. And this ties into this thing of perfectionism too, that you don't have to be a perfect practitioner before you start teaching, because we know that we'll never feel perfect enough. And it was that if you can, I remember when he said you start teaching, he said, I don't even know. He says, no, you'll know. Start teaching. Because the minute you start teaching, you start learning. I can say that my students, when Sir, all of you came to do the teachers training, after you after the training was left, they asked me, but how did you become a teacher? This teacher's training is very new. How did you become? You don't have a certificate. How did you become a teacher? And this is the uniqueness of the style. I had to kind of go back and see how I became a teacher, and I know how I became a teacher. I became a teacher by, I would come and Prabhakar would give me a sheet, a routine to practice. I would go home and I would practice and I would come. And then he would look at me and then he would give me the next routine. And by practicing alone, I began to see or imagine what my teacher was seeing in me, that he was making this. So I was practicing and seeing myself practice simultaneously and knowing, he's made this little shift and little change because of this. So do you understand? This is like the finest way of becoming a teacher, that you are practicing and you're also seeing how your teacher is seeing you and how your teacher is teaching you. So you're learning both to be a teacher and to see yourself, and to be, you're the doer and the seer at the same time, so to speak, the drishtu and the karta both. And this is again the hallmark of this style, which again is because we did not buy into standardization. If you are brought into standardization, then you have to go to school to learn how to teach. Of course, we are doing that too. But if I'm on some boards in America where they teach, and over there they even teach you how to use the teaching voice. Literally, I don't know if you know that they teach you how you have to learn how to, like, hello, and now you will go into asana. And literally there's a class in how to develop that teaching voice. I mean, it's a hoax. But these are the pressures of standardization. That you have to have the whole package, and voice and that softness of fake voice is part of the package. And the whole idea of packaging is so alien to us, and thank God. And it is because of Sir that we didn't buy into all this packaging. We did not buy into packaging because of Sir. We did not buy into standardization because of Sir. So I would like to, I can't see how much time it is. Okay. Yeah. Just like maybe end by saying that respect, care, I would say even freedom. I mean, I particularly felt, we all learned differently. And we all had different. For me, it was, I felt I was like really lucky, because I was in India but not in Delhi. So I was close to him, but at the same time I also had the freedom to play around with what he was offering me. And it was like, I had the freedom, and then I would run to him and say, sir, what do I do with this? Or invite him to Delhi. I mean, for the many years he came and he did workshops at the studio, and in fact he's the one who helped me name the studio. And I also want to tell you one thing, that when I decided to open my studio, I picked up the phone and I said, sir, I want to start, so what shall I? And then he says, okay, I'll come and bless it. Fine. And then when I started to kind of prepare for it, my friends and peers would say, okay, you're going to teach yoga, but what kind of yoga are you going to teach? There are so many kinds of yogas. They are all into the standardization thing. So I said, now we have to give, there are names of yogas. I said, well, I don't know, but names, it's yoga. So I picked up the phone and said, sir, I have to start a studio, but what shall I say? What kind of yoga am I teaching? He says, you say only yoga. If you write any other qualification to it, I am not coming. Literally. He says, what we teach, what we practice is yoga. Plain, so I would call it plain old yoga. That's my little thing, that we just do plain old yoga. We don't do there's no adjective to the yoga. And it was an ultimatum, literally, that he says, if you give it a name, then count me out. And that is how strongly he felt about these branding. So there was standardization, there was also branding. He did not, I get goosebumps when I say this, he absolutely rejected the idea of branding. And can you imagine what a resistance? This is pure resistance. This is like political resistance against a regime of corporatization. I mean, yoga has, as you know, is a corporation today. Yoga is a total corporation. And this one man, I can't think of any other, I really can't think of any other who did not buy into that and made yoga into a bandwagon on which they are clamoring. This single man, TKV Desikachar, resisted it. I mean, he was the sole resistor, literally. And I feel so fortunate to have, to be sitting next to Prabhakar that day, and I landed up here. You don't know how many times I kind of, in my praise and my gratitude praise, I remember that moment that I met Prabhakar and I landed up here. Because I could have gone somewhere else. And branding yoga today somewhere. And selling my soul and being, whatever. So he did not brand, he did not make any tall claims. We know that. He didn't make any tall claims that, we'll do this and we do that. Nothing. He remained open, and when he didn't know, he openly said, I don't know. He did not make any assumptions. He didn't make any assumptions, that he didn't assume about you or anything. He's one of the few people who did not make any assumptions. He didn't make any claims, and he didn't make any judgments. I mean, he was one of the most open, liberal. So when open is liberal, he was like incredibly progressive. Like really, I marvel at this man how unassuming he was. He was so unassuming and such a force of resistance at the same time, without carrying that weight on his shoulders that he wasn't posing to be, but he just did it very silently. So on a lighter note, the only thing he judged was peanuts. I must say that he hated peanuts. And he told me, he says, don't eat peanuts. So for many years, I didn't eat peanuts. But now I do because I can't resist them. But this is just a little joke. But really, the man didn't assume, he didn't claim, he didn't judge, and he gave. And he gave almost with a state of not fully knowing. You see? This is a very important thing, that to give, fully knowing you give is it's a sense of authority. But to give but not with a sense of knowing. To give knowing, but still maybe try it out here. It's one of those things, try it out. So he respected and honored. I think this is where his engineering comes. And he was curious and he respected the dynamic power of matter, of body. Because the body and matter, the Panchabhutas, they have a life and a proclivity and a force of their own. And that man respected that. He didn't impose ideas upon that. He let the body be. And he honored the body. At the same time, he was also open to that something more all the time. Literally, I don't know, there was a time that somebody was saying that they will write, I don't know who it was, that they will write a book of every decade of KYM. Because every decade KYM is a different place. Since the 80s or 70s where I've been watching it, it changes. The technique, that method changes, the focus changes. So I remember how from asana he came to Vedic chanting. And he called me and he says, I'm going to teach you Vedic chanting. And this is actually a way of pranayama. He taught me, that's the first thing, he says, this is pranayama. He didn't teach me Vedic chanting as Vedic chanting. I'm a Sikh, he didn't probably want to do that. So he says, learn this, but this is pranayama. Because this is the modulation of the voice and the breath. So, I just feel blessed that I had him as a teacher. But no, not had him. Like he says, his teacher is. Desikachar sir is. Thank you. This is better. Working? You see, when I first came to TKV, I was told, and I wish I wasn't told this because it scared me. I was told that Periyavil would not teach dances. So for that reason, I was so afraid I never met Periyavil. And it's like the most unfortunate thing that I was studying at the Mandiram and Periyavil was there, but I never had the guts to go and see him. Yeah. So, but other than that, I realized very, very early on that yoga and dance both use the body, but the treatment is totally different. But now I also want to say in hindsight that it's not the treatment, it is the attitudes, the ideas that have been placed upon it. So, like I said, dance is like the biggest trump card of Indian culture, or it was. So I was told that you are becoming the ambassador of Indian culture. Can you imagine the weight of it? I mean, of course, it's a very, very lofty thing and a very noble thing, but it stops making you being a dancer. You can't dance to dance. You have to kind of carry the flag of India, literally. Like, so the ideas of dance at that point were very, very oppressive. But also, I realized, apart from the ideas, that dance is extrovert, and practice of yoga for me was introvert. So it was using the medium of the body, but one was to show, and one was to literally see. Yeah. So initially it was a huge conflict. I can't begin to tell you how. I mean, I would literally for 10 years I would say this was a conflict, and I would say, should I choose one? Because they were pulling me asunder, and I loved them both. It's only after I left, after I passed out from Kalakshetra, after I started making my own dance work. It's only when I started choreographing myself that dance became mine, and dance began to give me the same sukha as yoga gave me from day one. So that's when the two kind of became one, and now there's no conflict for me. But for the longest time, it was chalk and cheese, and it was not easy at all. And I was like, people would say, "Oh, you're a dancer. Oh, you're doing yoga. How fantastic! It must be helping you." And I said, "No, it doesn't help me at all. I can stretch and be flexible other ways too. I don't have to do yoga for it." So I can see why Periyavil did not want to teach dances, because not only that he would say that we misuse the body. It's not to misuse the body. We make the body a spectacle. And dance is, now that I know dance is not about being a spectacle either, but it's the idea. Really, this is where I say I said this in the morning, there is the body and then there is the idea of the body. There is yoga and there is the idea of yoga. There is dance and there is the idea of dance. The idea of dance is that you are going to, like I say, dance is like this kind of thing. Expose yourself. It's a spectacle. And dance is not about that at all. It's the idea of dance that it has become like showbiz. Or you have to be, exposed. Now that I dance, the way I want to dance, it's not about that at all. It's about really moving and watching yourself, and you watching me watch myself. And that's the beauty. So, initially it was a big problem, but now it's...
I'm a dancer, so I can relate. Is it the concept of bhavana that you use from your dance knowledge to input into the simplest of asanas that you do, just like Chakravarasana, lifting out hand, usually the concept of bhavana is when you learn the inversions. You generally lie down in Shavasana and do the bhavana for you to get more into it. But when in the previous lecture when you told us, I think the preparation, the visualization took us more into the posture than we normally would actually go into it. So, was it an idea of your dancing skills that brought this concept of preparation?
I get it. Okay. Yes. But I would say more than bhavana, it is what I have particularly learned from dance is image making. I think in images. So my teaching is full of images. I didn't realize at the beginning, but now everybody who studies with me is saying, I'm creating imagery. And that imagery is it has a force of its own, it has an inspiration of its own, it has a bhavana of its own. So it is, I would not say bhavana as such, but it is the image. But I haven't done this with you guys today, but there's a whole thing that I've experimented with, that there is a part of me that feels the bhavana, feels the bhava. But that part, and this is something that I'm jumping the gun. What my experimentation has been, that the part that feels is the part that cannot move. So the part that feels, and then there is the, like we have in the Natya Shastra, there is the anga and then the upanga. There's something within the anga feels, but it's the upangs that make you fulfill that feeling. So it is this model that I'm also working on, that there is, of course, there is the bhavana precedes the movement. And if you know the word razamandi in Urdu, it's like, something feels and the rest of the cosmos of the body comes into agreement to fulfill that feeling. Razamandi Vajra. So it is, so it's that there is a spark of a feeling, or an image, or a bhavana, and then everything else gets ready to fulfill it. So what fulfills and what feels the need are
while you touched on Sar's very assets of his qualities and personality, you also mentioned that he did not play the guru card. The Indian tradition glorifies guru card, right? Even dance, for example, operates on the principle of guru sishya parampara. So was it in his personality that he did not want to play the guru card, or is it that he believed that yoga teaching does not have to follow the guru sishya, everything has to be learned from the guru, the guru teaches the student. So is that something that was, I find it a little discordant.
okay. I think there are many, could be many reasons. I think he personally that wasn't his personal disposition. Like, if I have to be a guru, I can't be a guru. I'll be a lousy guru. Because I don't have it in me to be a guru. I don't think if he also believed in playing the guru. I don't think he had it in him to play the guru. Though, on the other hand, I think he saw his teacher as his guru. His teacher was in a position of guru, and that was and he was comfortable in being a guru, and Desikachar sir was comfortable being his shishya. By Maryada, absolutely by Sampradaya, he was his student. But he didn't like he said, no, I respect my teacher, but I am not like him. So it's that thing, so it's not discordant, it's a choice. And he fulfilled his dharma as a student completely. But on the other hand, he didn't stand and that he didn't assume that position of being the teacher and had other people feel that. So he kind of demolished that dharma, so to speak. He disabled the dharma for the next generation, for me, so to speak. So I didn't feel that he was my guru, he was my inspiration, he still is. But he didn't play the guru card, and I didn't have to play. Though we did, we were all, in veneration. But it was pure love and respect, adoration. But we didn't go around, like supplicants. And I think Krishnamacharya also plays an important role in it, because he taught Jiddu Krishnamacharya, and who totally rejects the Gurudom. I mean, that's his biggest pet peeve, so to speak. He hates the idea of gurus. So I think it was a combination of all three. And Sir was very comfortable. And Sir, I think he was or must have been almost liberating for him to know that, somebody is letting him off the hook and he doesn't have to play the guru. So he did not play the guru, and yet he played the Shishya. And he broke that link, so to speak. He made the choice to break that link between, because the thing is that we are stepping into a modern, we have to realize that we are within a modern, good or bad, we are in a different context. Now that guru thing it doesn't have that same, like today when I see people falling at people's feet in public, it's a sham. It doesn't bring authentic anymore to me, because we are in a different context. These are photo ops now. So I think he just, in one stroke, he just brushed it aside. And very lightly, that's the whole thing. He didn't take any stand, no, I will not be a guru, and nothing. Gone. And respect is there. Authentic respect, authentic love, adoration, everything is there. But the gestures have become separate.
Thanks, Navtej. Now we will be closing. Before that, an announcement. Next month, 21st May falls on a Sunday. So we will have the lecture on 20th May, Saturday. And I have requested Mr. Madhav Nambiar, who is here with us. He is one of our trustees, a senior civil servant, an IAS official, who also shares more than 30 years of experience with being a student of SAR, and he is on the board of KYM. And I have requested him, so he will be talking next May. Before I end, I would like to say, even though Navtej said that Sir is not Guru and all that, but he has given him the Gayatri, so he is his Guru.
This chant is liked by Sir very much. So we are doing the last portion of Narayana. Om Pratyaganandam Brahma Purusham Pranavaswarupam Akara Ukara Makara Iti Tanekadha Samabharat Tadetadomiti Yamuktva Muchyate Yogi Janma Samsara Bandhanat Om Namo Narayanayeti Mantropasakaha Vaikuntha Bhuvanalokam Gamishyati Tadidam Param Pundarikam Vijnanaghanam Tasmat Tadidavan Matram Brahmanyo Devaki Putro Brahmanyo Madhusudhano Om Sarvabhutasthame Narayanam Karana-rūpamakara parabrahmo Etadathārva-shiro yodhite Prataradhiyano ratrikritam papannāshayati Sayamadhiyano divasakritam papannāshayati Madhyandinamaditya bhimukho dhiyāna पञ्चपातक उपपातकात् प्रमोच्यते सर्ववेदपारायण पुण्यं लभते नारायण सायुज्यमवाप्नोति श्रीमन्नारायण सायुज्यमवाप्नोति य एवं वेद इत्युपनिषत् हरिः ॐ